Chosen one. Stop scrolling. What if I told you that the resistance you are facing right now is not random? What if the strange tension around your life, the sudden opposition, the unexpected distancing, and the silent attacks are happening because someone has realized something about you before you fully realized it yourself? And what they realized is this: you cannot be controlled. Listen carefully. Some people are not trying to understand you anymore. They are trying to remove you, not because you harmed them, not because you failed, but because your presence exposes what they worked hard to keep hidden. In the next few minutes, you will understand why certain doors closed, why certain people suddenly changed, and why the pressure around you intensified without warning. Because what looks like rejection may actually be confirmation that heaven is repositioning you. Before we go further, I need to ask you something. Have you noticed people treating you differently after you started growing spiritually? Have you noticed conversations becoming awkward, relationships becoming distant, and opportunities suddenly becoming complicated? If that has been happening, stay until the end, because there is a reason for it, and most people never discover it until it is too late. Chosen one, there is a pattern that repeats throughout history. The moment someone begins stepping into their purpose, resistance appears. Not because they are moving in the wrong direction, because they are moving in the right one. Many people believe opposition is proof they should stop. But often opposition is proof they have finally become visible. The enemy does not waste energy attacking what poses no threat. Think about that. The pressure increased because your impact increased. The resistance grew because your influence grew. The attacks intensified because your future became harder to ignore. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Courage, dear heart, chosen one of the hardest truths to accept is that not everyone will celebrate your growth." Many people say they want to see you succeed, but what they really mean is that they want to see you succeed only as long as your success remains smaller than their comfort zone. The moment God begins elevating your thinking, strengthening your spirit, and expanding your vision, something starts to shift in the atmosphere around you. People who once encouraged you may become distant. People who once applauded your progress may suddenly become silent. It can feel confusing because you are still the same person at heart. Yet something about you has changed. The truth is that growth reveals things. It reveals character. It reveals motives. It reveals who genuinely supports your journey and who only enjoyed your company when you were easier to control. Some individuals are comfortable with your presence as long as you doubt yourself. They are comfortable with your voice as long as it remains quiet. They are comfortable with your dreams as long as those dreams never become reality. But the moment God starts opening your eyes to your purpose, their comfort begins to disappear. You may notice subtle changes at first. Conversations become different. Invitations become less frequent. Support becomes harder to find. The same people who once seemed excited for you now appear uncomfortable whenever your name is mentioned. They may not openly oppose you, but their energy changes, their attitude changes, their response changes. This happens because your growth becomes a mirror. Without saying a word, your progress reminds them of opportunities they ignored, gifts they neglected, and responsibilities they avoided. C.S. Lewis understood something powerful about human nature. He often wrote about the battle between light and darkness, truth and illusion. When a person begins walking in truth, illusion becomes harder for others to maintain. That is why your transformation can create tension in places where there was once peace, not because you are causing problems, but because your presence exposes what was already there. Light does not create darkness, it reveals it. Many chosen ones mistakenly assume that resistance means they are moving in the wrong direction. In reality, resistance can be confirmation that they are finally stepping into the direction God intended for them. The enemy rarely wastes effort on someone who has no impact. Opposition often increases when purpose becomes visible. That is why you must not interpret every challenge as a sign to quit. Sometimes the pressure is evidence that you are closer to your breakthrough than ever before. Remember this carefully, chosen one. People may misunderstand your growth. They may question your motives. They may even try to diminish your progress. But what God has placed inside you was never designed to be limited by human approval. Your assignment comes from heaven, not from the opinions of people. Stay faithful, stay humble, stay focused, because those who are threatened by your growth cannot stop what God has already decided to bless. And in time, the very people who doubted your journey will become witnesses to the purpose God was building within you all along. Chosen one, there are moments in life when everything seems to become heavier at once. Doors that once opened easily begin to close. Relationships become strained. Delays appear where progress once existed. Even simple tasks seem to require twice the effort. During these seasons, many people immediately assume that something has gone wrong. They believe the resistance means they are failing. They believe the obstacles mean they should turn around. But what if the opposite is true? What if the increase in spiritual opposition is actually a sign that you are approaching a breakthrough that the enemy does not want you to reach? Throughout Scripture, some of God's greatest servants experienced their strongest battles just before their greatest victories. The challenge always seemed to intensify before the breakthrough arrived. The pressure always seemed to increase before the promise was fulfilled. This pattern has not disappeared. It still exists today. Many chosen ones are experiencing it right now without fully understanding what is happening around them. When you begin moving closer to your purpose, your life starts creating ripples that extend beyond what you can see. Decisions become more significant. Opportunities become more meaningful. Your influence begins reaching people you have never met. What once seemed small starts carrying eternal weight. That is why spiritual resistance often becomes stronger. The battle is no longer about where you are. It is about where you are going. The opposition is responding to your future, not merely your present circumstances. This is why certain attacks feel unusual. They arrive unexpectedly. They seem disconnected from logic. Sometimes people turn against you without clear explanation. Sometimes confusion appears where clarity once existed. Sometimes discouragement shows up on days when you should feel hopeful. These moments can make a chosen one question everything. Yet this is exactly why discernment becomes so important. Not every struggle is just a natural difficulty. Some struggles are attempts to distract you from what God is preparing. C.S. Lewis wrote extensively about spiritual warfare, especially in his book, The Screwtape Letters. One of the central ideas throughout his work is that unseen battles often influence visible circumstances. He reminded readers that spiritual realities are frequently operating behind ordinary events. This does not mean every inconvenience is a spiritual attack, but it does mean that faithful believers should remain aware that there are forces working both for and against their growth. Many people expect breakthroughs to arrive with celebration and comfort. Often they arrive through testing instead. Before strength is revealed, it is challenged. Before faith is rewarded, it is examined. Before purpose is fully revealed, it is opposed. This is why some of the most difficult seasons eventually become the most important chapters of a person's story. The very experiences that seemed designed to stop them become the experiences that prepare them. Think about how fear operates. Fear wants immediate reactions. Fear wants emotional decisions. Fear wants you to abandon your position before the blessing arrives. The enemy understands that if he cannot destroy your calling, he will attempt to discourage you from pursuing it. He will try to convince you that the struggle means God has left you. He will try to convince you that the waiting means God has forgotten you. But neither of those things is true. God often works most powerfully in seasons when his activity is least visible. Roots grow underground before fruit appears above ground. Preparation happens before promotion. Character develops before influence expands. The breakthrough you are praying for may already be moving toward you, even though you cannot yet see it. That is why faith remains essential during seasons of opposition. Chosen one, if resistance has increased recently, do not panic. If the pressure feels heavier than before, do not immediately assume defeat. Instead, pause and consider the possibility that something significant is approaching. The enemy does not fear your past. He fears your future. He does not fear who you used to be. He fears who God is transforming you into. Every challenge that tries to convince you to quit may actually be confirming that you are closer than you realize. Stand firm. Pray deeply. Trust patiently. Keep moving forward even when the road feels uncertain, because many times the strongest opposition appears right before the greatest breakthrough. And one day you may discover that the very season you thought was trying to break you was actually preparing you for everything God had promised all along. Chosen one of the most misunderstood seasons in a person's spiritual journey is isolation. Most people immediately assume that being alone means something is wrong. They see distance from others as a punishment. They interpret silence as abandonment. They view closed doors and empty rooms as evidence that they have somehow failed. But what if the isolation you are experiencing is not a punishment at all? What if it is a strategy? What if God is intentionally separating you from certain voices so you can finally hear His? Many chosen ones find themselves entering seasons where familiar connections begin to fade. Friends become distant. Invitations become rare. Conversations that once filled every day suddenly disappear. At first, this can feel painful. It can feel confusing. You may wonder why people who once seemed close no longer seem present. You may question why the support system you depended upon appears to be shrinking. Yet sometimes God removes distractions before He reveals direction. Throughout Scripture, some of the greatest transformations happened in places of solitude. Moses spent years in the wilderness before leading a nation. David spent long periods alone before becoming king. Even Jesus often withdrew from crowds to spend time in prayer. These moments were not signs of weakness. They were seasons of preparation. God was building something in private before revealing it in public. The problem is that many people fear isolation because it forces them to face themselves. Noise can be comforting. Constant activity can become a distraction. Endless conversations can prevent deeper reflection. But when God allows silence to enter your life, hidden truths begin to surface. Things you ignored become impossible to avoid. Questions you postponed demand answers. Priorities become clearer. Purpose becomes sharper. Character becomes stronger. C.S. Lewis understood the value of solitude. In many of his writings, he explored how people often avoid stillness because stillness reveals reality. When distractions disappear, truth becomes easier to recognize. That can feel uncomfortable at first, but discomfort is not always harmful. Sometimes it is necessary. Sometimes it is the very thing that leads to transformation. There is a reason why isolation often arrives before elevation. God cannot always build your future in environments that are attached to your past. Certain habits must be broken. Certain attachments must be loosened. Certain dependencies must be removed. If everyone remained around you during every stage of growth, some voices would become louder than God's direction. Isolation creates space for spiritual clarity. This does not mean you will be alone forever. It does not mean every relationship is ending. It simply means that for a season, God may be narrowing your focus. He may be teaching you how to depend on Him in ways you never have before. He may be preparing you for responsibilities that require greater wisdom, greater discernment, and greater faith. Many chosen ones make the mistake of fighting this process. They rush to fill every empty space. They chase relationships that God is allowing to fade. They seek comfort when God is offering preparation. As a result, they miss the lessons hidden within the season. But when you embrace the process instead of resisting it, everything begins to change. What once felt like loneliness starts becoming peace. What once felt like rejection starts becoming direction. Pay attention to what happens during isolation. Your discernment becomes stronger. Your intuition becomes sharper. Your prayers become deeper. You begin noticing patterns you once overlooked. You start seeing people more clearly. You start understanding your purpose more deeply. The silence that once frightened you becomes a place of growth. The separation that once hurt you becomes a source of strength. There are battles that can only be won in private before victories are experienced in public. There are lessons that can only be learned when outside voices grow quiet. There are revelations that can only be heard when distractions disappear. God knows this. That is why He sometimes allows isolation to become part of the journey. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "We are what we believe we are." During seasons of isolation, many false identities begin to fall away. The labels people placed on you lose their power. The expectations of others become less important. You begin discovering who God says you are rather than who the world says you should be. Chosen one, if you find yourself walking through a lonely season, do not immediately assume that heaven has forgotten you. The silence may be intentional. The separation may be necessary. The solitude may be sacred. God often does His deepest work away from crowds, away from applause, and away from distractions. Trust the process. Trust the preparation. Trust the wisdom behind the waiting, because the same isolation that feels uncomfortable today may become the foundation of your strength tomorrow. One day, you will look back and realize that what seemed like abandonment was actually protection. What felt like loneliness was actually preparation. And what appeared to be a setback was really God's strategy to position you for the next chapter of your purpose. Chosen one of the greatest mistakes people make is assuming that opposition means they have lost value. When criticism increases, when rejection appears, and when others suddenly begin working against them, they often start questioning themselves. They wonder if they are doing something wrong. They wonder if they should become smaller, quieter, or less visible. But there is a truth that many chosen ones eventually discover. Attempts to remove you often reveal your true value. In fact, some people do not recognize your importance until they realize they can no longer control, limit, or ignore you. Think about this carefully. Nobody spends energy trying to remove something they believe is insignificant. People rarely feel threatened by what has no influence. They rarely become concerned about someone who carries no purpose. The very fact that resistance has increased around your life may be revealing something important. It may be revealing the impact you carry. It may be revealing the potential others see in you, even when you do not fully see it yourself. Many chosen ones spend years underestimating their own significance. They focus on their flaws. They focus on their weaknesses. They focus on everything they have not yet achieved. Meanwhile, other people are paying attention to something completely different. They notice your strength. They notice your resilience. They notice your influence. They notice the way your presence changes an atmosphere. Even when you feel ordinary, others may recognize something extraordinary operating through your life. This is why certain individuals become uncomfortable when you begin stepping into your purpose. Your growth changes the balance. Your confidence changes the dynamic. Your willingness to walk in truth removes opportunities for manipulation. Suddenly, people who benefited from your uncertainty begin reacting differently. Not because you became a problem, but because your clarity became difficult to control. C.S. Lewis often explored the idea that human beings possess far greater value than they realize. He believed every soul carried eternal significance. That perspective changes everything. If every person is created with divine purpose, then your life is not accidental. Your calling is not random. Your existence carries meaning that extends beyond what can be measured by worldly standards. One of the clearest signs of hidden value is unexpected opposition. Sometimes people attack what they secretly admire. Sometimes they criticize what they do not fully understand. Sometimes they attempt to diminish what they cannot duplicate. This does not excuse harmful behavior, but it does help explain why certain reactions seem so disproportionate. The intensity of the response often reveals the significance of the target. Consider the story of David before he became king. He was overlooked by many people, yet he carried a destiny that eventually changed a nation. Consider Joseph, who was betrayed by those closest to him. Their actions seemed designed to remove him from the picture. Yet those same actions became part of the process that positioned him for leadership. Again and again throughout history, attempts to suppress purpose only ended up revealing it more clearly. This pattern still exists today. There are people who are trying to push you aside, silence your voice, or make you question your worth. They may believe they are reducing your influence. They may believe they are slowing your progress. What they fail to understand is that purpose cannot be permanently stopped by human opposition. If God has assigned something to your life, resistance may delay it, but it cannot destroy it. Many chosen ones spend too much time asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" A better question might be, what is this situation revealing? Sometimes opposition reveals hidden motives. Sometimes it reveals unhealthy environments. Sometimes it reveals relationships that were never as genuine as they appeared. But often, it reveals your own value. It shows you that the gifts, wisdom, strength, and character God placed inside you are having a greater impact than you realized. There is a reason why pressure often reveals identity. Diamonds are tested under pressure. Gold is refined through fire. Character is strengthened through challenges. The very situations designed to discourage you can end up revealing qualities you never knew you possessed. Courage appears when fear is present. Faith grows when certainty is absent. Strength develops when weakness feels overwhelming. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." That idea speaks directly to this season. The challenges you are facing may not be evidence of defeat. They may be preparation for greater responsibility. They may be uncovering strengths that would have remained hidden without difficulty. Chosen one, do not measure your value by how people treat you. Some people fail to recognize treasure even when it stands directly in front of them. Some people only understand the importance of something after it is gone. Your worth does not increase when others approve of you, and it does not decrease when others reject you. Your value comes from the one who created you. The attempts to remove you may feel painful right now. They may feel unfair. They may leave questions that remain unanswered, but do not miss the deeper lesson hidden within the struggle. The resistance itself may be revealing what heaven already knows about you. It may be revealing the influence you carry, the purpose you possess, and the assignment attached to your life. So stand firm, chosen one. Let opposition teach you rather than define you. Let resistance strengthen you rather than discourage you, because sometimes the strongest proof of your value is not found in who celebrates you. Sometimes it is found in who feels threatened by the light God placed within you. And when you understand that truth, you stop chasing approval and start walking confidently in the purpose God designed specifically for you, chosen one. One of the deepest mysteries of God's work is that He often uses the very things meant to harm you as tools to elevate you. Most people view rejection, betrayal, misunderstanding, and disappointment as signs that something has gone wrong. They see closed doors and broken relationships as evidence of failure. They focus on the pain of the moment without realizing that God is often building something greater behind the scenes. What feels like a setback today may become the foundation of your testimony tomorrow. There are seasons when life simply does not make sense. You pray for support and encounter resistance. You offer kindness and receive criticism. You remain loyal and experience betrayal. In those moments, it is easy to become discouraged. It is easy to wonder why God would allow such things to happen. Yet throughout Scripture, God repeatedly demonstrates His ability to transform painful experiences into powerful purpose. What others intended for destruction, He used for direction. What appeared to be an ending became the beginning of something far greater. Joseph understood this truth better than most. His own brothers betrayed him. People he trusted turned against him. He was falsely accused, forgotten, and pushed aside. Looking at his circumstances alone, it would have seemed that his story was falling apart. Yet every painful event became a step toward the position God had prepared for him. The betrayal moved him. The rejection positioned him. The hardship strengthened him. What looked like a tragedy was actually preparation. Many chosen ones are experiencing something similar right now. Certain people have misunderstood you. Others have doubted your intentions. Some have spoken against you without knowing the full story. The temptation is to spend your energy proving yourself. The temptation is to fight every battle and defend every accusation. But sometimes God allows misunderstanding because He is teaching you to depend on His validation rather than human approval. C.S. Lewis often explored the idea that suffering is not meaningless. He believed that God can use even painful experiences to shape character and deepen faith. While no one enjoys hardship, hardship has a way of revealing what comfort often hides. It exposes strengths you never knew you possessed. It reveals faith that remained invisible during easier seasons. It teaches lessons that success alone could never teach. Rejection is one of the most painful experiences a person can endure. Everyone wants to be accepted. Everyone wants to belong. Yet many of God's greatest servants experienced rejection before they experienced promotion. David was overlooked. Moses was doubted. The prophets were ignored. Even Jesus Himself faced rejection from people who should have recognized Him. The lesson is not that rejection feels good. The lesson is that rejection does not have the final word. Sometimes God allows a door to close because the room behind it is too small for your next season. Sometimes He allows people to walk away because they cannot accompany you where He is leading you. Sometimes what feels like loss is actually divine redirection. Think about how many people remain stuck because they refuse to release what God is trying to remove. They keep chasing relationships that have already expired. They keep mourning opportunities that no longer align with their purpose. They keep fighting for access to places God is calling them to leave. Meanwhile, new opportunities remain unseen because their eyes are fixed on what has ended. Betrayal carries its own unique pain. It hurts most when it comes from people you trusted. The wound is deeper because the connection was real. Yet even betrayal can become part of God's plan. This does not mean God approves of harmful actions. It means He is powerful enough to redeem them. He is able to take what was meant for evil and transform it into something that serves His purpose. Some of the strongest, wisest, and most compassionate people became that way because they survived betrayal. They learned discernment. They learned resilience. They learned how to trust God when human support disappeared. The very experience that threatened to break them became the experience that built them. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains." That statement resonates because pain often forces us to pay attention. During comfortable seasons, it is easy to drift. During difficult seasons, we seek God with greater intensity. We pray more deeply. We listen more carefully. We become more aware of His guidance and presence. Misunderstanding is another tool God sometimes uses in unexpected ways. Not everyone will understand your journey. Not everyone will understand your calling. Some people will judge your actions based on incomplete information. Others will form opinions without knowing your heart. If you spend your life trying to correct every misunderstanding, you will exhaust yourself. Jesus was misunderstood. The prophets were misunderstood. Many faithful believers throughout history were misunderstood. Yet they continued moving forward because they understood something important. God's opinion mattered more than public opinion. Their purpose was greater than people's perceptions. This does not mean you become careless about your character. It means you stop allowing misunderstandings to control your direction. You continue walking in integrity. You continue doing what is right. And you trust God to reveal the truth in His timing. Chosen one, the experiences you are grieving today may eventually become the reasons you are grateful tomorrow. The rejection may have protected you. The betrayal may have redirected you. The misunderstanding may have refined you. What appears painful now may one day reveal itself as one of the greatest blessings in disguise. Do not judge your story from a single chapter. God sees the entire picture. He sees connections you cannot yet see. He sees opportunities you have not yet reached. He sees victories that have not yet arrived. While you focus on the immediate pain, He is working on the greater purpose. So if you have been rejected, keep walking. If you have been betrayed, keep trusting God. If you have been misunderstood, keep living with integrity. Refuse to let temporary pain convince you that your future has been compromised. Because God has always been in the business of turning setbacks into setups, wounds into wisdom, and trials into testimonies. The very things that tried to stop you may become the things that strengthen you. The very experiences that seemed designed to break you may become the evidence of God's faithfulness. And one day, chosen one, you will look back at every rejection, every betrayal, and every misunderstanding and realize something extraordinary. None of it was wasted. God was using every piece of the journey to shape you, prepare you, and position you for the purpose He had planned all along. If this message is speaking directly to your spirit, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. And in the comments, write these words: "I will not fear the transition.